Drew, the day is finally here. They have fixed it.
I think that they've finally done it.
It's over.
There are finally no more problems
There's
with
no
Commander.
more problems. And I am so thankful that I don't have to think about this anymore.
As you maybe have heard, Wizards of the Coast, their new Commander Brigade, their panel, council,
I believe
oligarchy.
I kind of like the Coven, but that's
Their
fine.
Coven
Yeah.
has come out with a ranking system that all Commander players can finally use to accurately distinguish and communicate the power level of their decks to the tables that they're playing at.
Yeah, and we're gonna jump into them, but on the surface level, how do you feel about this?
This is totally different from 1 through 10. There's no longer going to be a meme of it's all 7. Like, it only goes up to 5. There's no longer going to be any memes, and it's all going to be all laid out for you. And there's nothing wrong with the system that they've created in any way, shape, or form. The new scale that they've created goes from 1 through 5, and is supposed to cover everything from decks that are basically just exhibition, like sample decks that maybe use like your favorite artist's cards, all the way up to competitive Elder Dragon Highlander, cEDH. And the way that they do it is they describe the contents of the deck only, and then having 2 sort of degrees of ban lists. One of them is called Game Changers, and then the other is just a ban list for all cards.
Yeah, I've been thinking a lot about the Game Changer list. It feels like when you're like in like young school age, and the teacher is like puts you into like forced social group project groups and says, okay, you must discuss Blockbuster. And you're like, thank you? And like, that's what Ristic Study is now, where it's like, you must have a discussion about whether there's Ristic Study in my deck before the game.
Yeah, exactly.
When you could have just done that before, but now the teacher said so.
Yeah, something that's really weird that I want to say first and foremost is that a system like this will never be able to capture the entirety of the scope of what your commander decks can and can't do. It is always going to be on you as the player and on your opponents to communicate your power level to the best of your ability before the game starts, if your intention is to have a fun and fair match.
Let's just run through the brackets.
Yeah, so we're starting at rank 1, which is an exhibition deck.
Yeah, an exhibition deck, quote, your ultra casual commander deck. It's no infinite combos, no game changers, no mass land removal extra turns. And what I found to be interesting is even here at level 1, it's few tutors.
It seems so strange to me because I feel like the precons that they release don't often have tutors in them, which is strange that they say that as your exhibition deck, you can have tutors in it and it's fine. It makes me feel like this was almost made as propaganda to stop people from feeling bad about running tutors.
Well, it's also interesting too, because what do you consider a tutor? Is Evolving Wilds a tutor?
I don't think Evolving Wilds is a tutor, no.
It does go find the land of your choice though.
That's true, but in my mind, a tutor is something that finds a tool, and finding like a color of mana is not so much a tool. So like Heliod's Pilgrim, I think is the name of the card. It's a mono white creature that just goes and finds an aura, any aura that you want. This is not on the stronger end of tutors. It's pretty slow. It puts it into your hand, but it's on a creature, and it only finds a very specific type of card. This is a tutor that I feel like would fit into an exhibition level deck, but when you say few tutors, you are not distinguishing between Heliod's Pilgrim and like Imperial Seal. Like, these are both tutors.
That's where I was going.
Evolving Wilds could be considered a tutor.
A pretty wild one.
Yes. So I feel like right now, the biggest thing that we're missing is that we're saying few tutors, and tutors are something that reach from every end of the power bracket, and there needs to be a little bit more specification here.
Sure. I get where they're going with this, though. It's like tutors don't necessarily make you evil, just like a gun doesn't kill people.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, it specifies what counts as a tutor. Cards that can search for non-land cards, fetch lands, rampant growth effects, and even expedition map effects don't add to your total of tutors. Interesting.
I understand where they're going with that, but given that like surveil lands are possible out of fetches now, and surveil can trigger other parts of your combo, I think we've got to be careful and say,
it's strange.
I saw a beautiful deck that was like on Arena. It was all the surveil lands, and once you had one of them and like a head shredder, it was an infinite kill combo, and all you need is a fetch land.
Yeah, weird. Second bracket level, we have Core. This is the relaxed game with a satisfying ending. Most people think that this is around the level that a precon will come in.
I will say, Wizards has the official as the average current precon deck. I don't know when this video will go out relative to a game we just played.
Yep.
I played the newest energy precon and
For Aether Drift.
for
if you
Aether
wanna
Drift.
be-
And to be honest, like it was later in the game, but it was post 2 board wipes where I had like 8 infinites on the board and I just picked one.
Yeah.
Now I'm not saying that precon is the average power level. I think it's probably above a lot of them, especially like the 1v1 precons. But at the same time, it's like pretty interesting to call this average current precon when like Lathril exists.
Yeah. And something
Or
else
Lapis.
in the core segment, as one of the caveats, it says no 2-card combos. This includes game enders, lockouts, or infinites. Precons are already breaking that rule. Precons have always broken that rule. So it seems strange to add that as a specific point. Also, it says few tutors. It seems like tutors are cool in every single deck. I think, again, my position on tutors is that I think having a few of them is fine. It's kind of like running 2 copies of something in your deck if you really need it to make your deck work. But I don't feel like I'm going to be running tutors in an exhibition deck that is just like every single frog card that they ever printed in a pile. Like, why would I need a tutor for that? The job of the deck is not really to win, it's just to be fun.
Sometimes in those kinds of strategies, you might be like, I literally have no choice unless I find an artifact that says my frogs get 1/1. And you play Vampiric Tutor to go find an artifact that says my frogs get 1/1.
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah. Going on to 3.
This one upgraded. Finally, we're allowed to have game changers. An interesting thing, they point to 3 of them. I don't know why that number.
It seems so random.
Arbitrary, yeah. I don't know. But now seems like a good time to actually talk about the game changers.
The only thing that it denies other than that is mass land denial and chaining extra turns. So you have 2-card combos allowed. Now there's 0 to 3 game changers, and then I guess now unlimited amount of tutors.
Yeah, well, not few.
It seems
says
super
not few.
strange to count tutors by quantity instead of quality.
Yeah, I agree. Well, look, when you're playing crop rotation, when I see a crop rotation hit, I'm like, oh God, what's happening?
It's all over.
Yeah, what are we doing? But the game changer list is full of cards that you would recognize if you've played Commander at any game store or with any card sharks, because you've got your Smothering Tides, your Heuristic Studies, your Cyclonic Rifts. Jessica's Will is in here. I feel like this is Red's best shot at that. So, I don't know.
I wanted to go through all of the game changers with you.
Yes.
I want to break them out, not one by one, but by color.
Sure.
And talk about like whether we think that this is like what we think should be a power level. So basically saying like how good did they do? And then any notable misses that we think that they have left out. So starting with white, we have Draneth Magistrate, Enlightened Tutor, Sarah's Sanctum, Smothering Tithe, and Trouble in Pairs.
Draneth Magistrate is the one that stands out to me as like the evilest card you can
Yeah, Draneth Magistrate in this list is the only one that I see exclusively in cEDH.
Yeah.
I don't see this at regular tables because it doesn't really synergize with anything. It is just a lockout tool, and people usually don't play lockout at a table unless that's their whole gimmick. And they say, hey guys, I'm playing a lockout exhibition deck, and you should probably just shoot everything that I do.
Trouble in Pairs is an interesting call out to me. I will say for sure, if you're just looking at the phrase game changer, Smothering Tithe is a game changer.
Oh, 100%.
When that hits the board, the game literally changes because people kind of go, you're not doing fair stuff anymore.
And the same with Draneth Magistrate, but I feel like there's a distinction like Draneth Magistrate stops people from playing. Smothering Tithe changes the frame that you view the game with. I feel like white is doing a decent job of showing what a game changer is. Is there anything that you can think of that they missed that is really powerful in white?
Not like really, really powerful, although
Grand Abolisher.
Oh yeah.
It seems weird that Grand Abolisher is allowed in my rank 1.
That's a great point.
And Esper Sentinel.
Esper Sentinel, I can understand why they wouldn't because it's only once per turn. But there are a lot of cards that you see in white that are played in every deck, Swords and Path being examples.
Yeah.
Look, those are 1 mana like get rid of spells, and I'm not saying that they're Draneth Magistrates, but they are like a level above, I think, where I would expect a precon to be.
Yep.
Now I'm going to say they're in every precon now.
They are.
So it's interesting that we've reached the point where like the standard of removal is 1 mana kill the hell out of a thing.
Yeah.
When like I think that that's pretty good, and it's just my disparagement is like I don't know.
Yeah.
Blue has the ones you'd recognize: Cyclonic Rift, Expropriate, which is funny, Force of Will, Fierce Guardianship, Heuristic Study, Thoracle, Urza, which I find to be interesting, Mystical Tutor, and Jingataxias.
Yeah.
Of this list, the most evil, in my opinion, is Jingataxias.
Oh, for sure. That is the game changer of like stop, you know?
Yeah.
The second one, which I think sets a tone that is different for the rest of the colors, is Cyclonic Rift. Why is Farewell not on this list if Cyclonic Rift is?
The answer is because Cyclonic Rift ends up winning you the game as opposed to Farewell, which is setting everyone back to the Stone Age. So, because you play it on the turn right before yours, and then you suddenly have the only board.
So why then is it more socially acceptable to board wipe and then have the game go on for another hour maybe, and not socially acceptable to play a board wipe and then be able to end the game so that we can start up a new one?
Because of the one card that's not listed on this list that they don't want you to talk about, propaganda. It's blue propaganda.
And Ghostly Prison isn't here either, which I think is a bit of a whiff. I feel like they should have made either a new category or changed the ban list, because Game Changers is this weird space between like, I'm powerful versus this is a cEDH combo piece.
Yeah, I also meant that blue players were literally doing propaganda against everyone else. But here's the thing. If you're playing Control, you do need a way to win the game. You have to win the game.
Yep.
And if your win condition is I Cyclonic Rift and I kill you guys with my like 10-1-1s when everyone's low, I don't love that. But I also, like Drew's saying, don't love being in a game where the 10th board wipe resolves and we've missed 4 meals. And my firstborn son is about to take up the mantle of this game.
And my mortgage. Not again. Big whiffs from the blue. What do you think?
I was surprised to not see at least like maybe Consecrated Sphinx or something to that end. Like there are a few blue cards that I know that I've played in strange decks that are like, but as far as the rest, like there are, we have Force of Will and Fierce Guardianship, but I don't see any of the other free blue ones on here. So I'm curious why those made it and not the other ones.
Yeah, it definitely seems a little bit strange. Why are all of the flares cool? Like, why is Flare of Denial? It's the same as Force of Will, but you need to sack a creature. So, like, I guess that makes it worse in cEDH.
I think it's
because... But if you're playing at a rank 3 table, Flare of Denial is going to be just as good as Force of Will.
Yeah. I'm not sure. Most of this list, like you're saying, is permanents that appear to give you a repeated, consistent effect. But then they put Psych Rift.
Yeah.
And then they put Force of Will, and then they put Fierce Guardianship.
I feel like blue does a much better idea of capturing the idea of a game changer as sort of like cEDH pieces that we want to leave out if we can to make the game more acceptable for, I guess, like new players and people who just don't want to play at such a high power level. Moving on to black, we have Ad Nauseam, Bolas' Citadel, Demonic Tutor, Imperial Seal, Opposition Agent, Tergrid, God of Fright, and Vampiric Tutor. This now opens another discussion. Tergrid, God of Fright is here.
Oh god, Tergrid.
This is a card that is famous for being a pain in the ass, specifically when it's somebody's commander. This makes me think that maybe the idea is like, is Urza, Lord High Artificer, and Jin-Gitaxias game changers because they can go into the command zone? Or are they like that outside of the command zone too? I would wager they're game changers in both places.
You know what it might be is that when they are put in a position, either in the command zone's a good argument.
Yeah.
They are so warping if the deck is built around them that it's not possible to capture them on this scale correctly.
Right.
Like Urza is played in a couple of my decks, but he's in there as a one of. I don't have that many cards that synergize with him, and I don't have ways for him to go infinite very well.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like, if I can play him, usually it comes down to, oh, please, Magic Gods, give me a good spin on the Urza. And then, like, sometimes it happens and sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah.
But if he's in the command zone and you're playing all the things that make his ability cheap and effective, or like you're playing artifacts that make tokens and you can tap for mana, I think I agree. And it's the same with Tergrid. We had a newer player a while back sit down with his new deck he was very excited to play, and it was Tergrid. we were like, hey, listen, we took him like, sorry, buddy. I know that you're excited to play this, but we're gonna take you out back.
Yeah.
And we're gonna beat the shit out of you. Metaphorically, because that's what we did with our dinosaur decks, is we just killed him first.
Yeah.
And because no one wants to lose their shit.
You see something in the command zone that is going to be threatening, like, oh, I don't know, the Ur-Dragon. You realize that the game has to be played a certain way, and to me it's incredible, and this is a spoiler, Ur-Dragon isn't on this list. Super cool commander to run at any power level.
Huh. Well, you know what else isn't on this list? Or talk about Eminence.
Yeah, exactly. Anything with Eminence, which is an unbelievable mechanic. Let's just scoot past black. I think that this, again, right now what black is telling me is that game changers are the difference between cEDH and regular EDH.
Yeah, this does feel like a lot of like tools to set you up. And no one, like, Opposition Agent is evil. You're evil if you play that. Including the deck I just made for someone in the warehouse that has Opposition Agent.
Yeah, exactly. Do you want to move on to red?
Yeah, just because I feel like it's red's best hope of having card advantage in this game and world. But this feels like a punch up, like they're equalizing, as opposed to like, this is disgusting and degenerate, like Underworld Breach is.
Yeah, I think that comparing Jessica's Will and Underworld Breach is just completely different things.
Like you want both, right? You want both.
You play Underworld Breach, you are going to win the game on that turn.
Yeah, you win the game.
You play Jessica's Will on like turn 5 to get ahead.
You hope, yeah.
You hope. It is a random thing. Underworld Breach is always consistent as long as you're, playing it with that intent. Which, I'm gonna say this before we get to the end, everything about EDH Power Level is about intent. It's about how are you planning on spending your time? I could play Underworld Breach in a deck that recurs self-discard spells that mills me out and kills me. Does that make this a 4 deck? No, of course not. That would be insane.
4 being optimized, high power, go wild is what Wizard says.
Yep.
There's no restrictions other than the ban list, so everything is good to go. One of our very own, Zach, it may or may not be his first day today if you've seen him on other channels, but he created 2 very special decks. The first is your classic Markov deck. Vampires, go wide. We're playing other decks that were fine. By the time we had like a creature, he had enough creatures to steal our guys with his captivating vampire.
Yeah.
And basically he's the lord of the table. That's how it works.
Hey, you're playing Eddie.
Yeah.
That's gonna happen.
It's gonna happen. But then, when he input that deck into a Moxfield-esque tool, and another one, which is Felix Five Boots, the best deck I've ever seen in Magic, it is the Exodia of he assembles Magic's 5 mediumist boots, and when he does, he decries a moral victory because Felix Five Boots.
Felix 5 Boots wearing 5 boots. Right. That is the end of the game.
That's
for the
game
deck.
for
There's no reducing enemy life totals. There is no endgame combos. There's no laboratory maniac.
He has an endgame combo. He says sometimes he can draw Tezzeret and it can do damage equal to artifacts.
On one turn.
Yeah, one time, and maybe get a guy. Anyway, Moxfield has described the Markov deck as a 2, and Moxfield has described this Exodia of 5 Boots as a 4.
To green, we have Gaia's Cradle, Survival of the Fittest, and Vorinclex, Voice of Hunger.
Vorinclex.
This is the perfect descriptor of a game changer.
I hate Vorinclex.
When you see Vorinclex, you kill Vorinclex. This is something that changes your entire perception of the game, no matter what the game state is.
I think I was the one that put it in our King's Cup, and it got played. And like the thing about this card is, the cards on this list, the ones that I know are correct is when someone says you're at a casual commander game. You're hanging out, people are cracking Coke Zeros. They're going out to the parking lot, calling their mom, having a good time. Someone's peeing for the 8th time during this game.
Yep.
And then you're about to make a play, and you go, I got to wait for them to get back. That's a game changer. Or when someone's like playing RuneScape on their phone, like, hey, you need to look at this. Yeah. That's a game changer. It's your psych riffs. And in green, for sure, it's Vorinclex.
Oh, yeah. 100%.
And even if they're like new players, you're like, I need you to read this card to understand what I'm doing to you. But like when you play, I don't know, like Demonic Tutor, like you don't do that.
Yeah.
And like, you can go find one of these cards, but like it doesn't stop the game and warp the perception of reality.
If you're using a tutor, it's just like, okay, I'm gonna go find something, is that cool? And not everyone needs to be there. If you are playing a Psych Rift, if you are playing like a Smothering Tide, if you're playing like Ghostly Prison, when you play that card, you say, new player, read this. Because it's gonna change how you're gonna look at me as a target.
Yeah, I think that's a good frame, is like player read this for this list, which is kind of funny.
I still think that there needs to be some distinction between cEDH cards that are only useful there and cards that are not. Because Underworld Breach, that is a card that you need to read and will instantly win you the game. Yeah. So it's like, if you haven't already known that this card existed, you are already at a loss. And Ghostly Prison is not like that.
And I wonder about the interactability of a lot of this stuff, because like, let's say Underworld Breach, when you cast it, when it hits the battlefield, whoever it is has priority, which is kind of cool. But Ghostly Prison, you have time to deal with it, like when it goes around the table and blow it up.
Exactly.
So I think there's an interesting, like, whether I can deal with this right now or whether I even have to. Vorinclex, I have to.
Yeah, exactly.
But Gaia's Cradle is kind of on the flip side. Yeah, it's going to make you 1 billion mana,
but
only if you're set up.
Yeah.
And also, like, land destruction is generally less played in EDH. Like, even spot removal, right?
Yep.
But at the same time, maybe that's part of why it's here. But it's really good.
There's a feeling of like urgency that I feel like is not being communicated. Let's continue through the game changers. In the multicolored section, Grand Arbiter Augustin IV. Great pick.
That's funny.
Great. It does change the game completely. Kin and Bonder Prodigy. This, if you are not aware what it is, will just instantly win the game.
Yeah.
This is the difference between cEDH and Game Changer in my mind.
I've seen a casual Kinnan deck. They just want to spin their ability a bunch. It's fine. But even those players like have like a mana vault or whatever in there. The Basalt Monolith thing.
Yeah.
And just because like, you gotta at some point. But at the same time, it's not the other ones. Fucking
Winota, Joiner of Forces, another extremely powerful card that kind of flexes between the slots, but at this point might be too slow for cEDH.
Well, up there, sure. But as far as me down in the peons of 2, 3, and sometimes 4, when people show up with Winota, we call them Winota to their face.
Yeah, exactly.
And we say, hey, Winota, what are you doing sitting at my table?
And then we have Yuriko, Tiger's Shadow.
Yuriko.
Another card that like is on the brink of cEDH. I'm not super competitive EDH player, but I know that like a combo deck that wins on turn 3 probably wins faster than Yuriko wins.
I think Yuriko is a good example of new player read this. Because it's like, wait, you can do what with it? Oh, and it does what? Oh, wow, okay. And then and they become aware and they have to play a different way.
Finally, moving on to colorless, we have Ancient Tomb, Chrome Mox, Glacial Chasm, Grim Monolith, Lion's Eye Diamond, that is just a cEDH card as far as I'm concerned, Mana Vault, Mox Diamond, the One Ring, Tabernacle at Pendrell Vale, and Trinisphere.
Glacial Chasm sticks out to me very much here.
Yeah.
I played this card as a wee Magic lad because I thought it was funny. And like,
no, but that card is some
disgusting.
torture. It is some pain.
It is for sure. But it's so funny to put that card up against like, I don't know, Ancient Tomb. Ancient Tomb makes you some mana.
Yeah.
And I get that it accelerates you, but it doesn't like fully warp the game.
To me, I think that a bit of wisdom that is lost on this list is putting Ancient Tomb and Ad Nauseam on the same list.
Yeah.
They serve two completely different purposes. Ad Nauseam does one thing. It wins you the game.
I want to go up and finish talking about, we've jumped into 4 and 5.
Yeah.
5 being cEDH with no restrictions.
Except for the ban list.
Right, except for the ban list, which Wizards calls high power with a very competitive and metagame focused mindset.
Yep.
Which is different than 4, which is high power commander, it's time to go wild. So it just seems like the only difference from the Wizards listing is that 5 is supposed to be competitive.
Like an acknowledgement of a meta.
Yeah, competitive and meta. You know there's a meta.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. Competitive is not, I think, the right word there, because you do still want to win, particularly at 4.
Yeah.
So if you say, why can't I be competitive at 4, which is optimized and supposed to be trying to win, I think that word is a wash. The only thing we're talking about is whether you're aware of your meta or not.
Yep.
And that feels weird because we had a discussion earlier today. I know people, oh God, I'm admitting this on camera, who all play mono blue counterspells. I love them as people, but God, do I hate them. You suck.
Yeah.
If you're watching this, you suck. And the thing is, if you know you're going to run up against mono blue players and people who play counterspells on your Thursday night, Friday night Magic games, then you prepare for that. I'm playing Godzilla, I need to play Cavern of Souls in my deck.
Yeah, you have to be ready for it.
And that doesn't mean I'm a cEDH player. It means that I know what I'm getting into.
Yeah.
So I find that to be interesting that the word meta is really the focus from a Wizards announcement perspective.
In my mind, my final opinion sort of on the scale is that I like the idea of game changers. The name captures what it is, but they are missing something to distinguish between 4 and 5, and this is what it is. They need a list of cards that are called cEDH cards. And it says, if you're running any combination of more than like 3 or 4 of these exact cards, this is cEDH.
Almost like disqualifiers.
Yes, so the Game Changers list where it fails is if I'm running Enlightened Tutor, Smothering Tithe, and Rhystic Study, the game has changed, but I'm not instantly going to win the game. And those 3 cards are valued the same as Ad Nauseam, Underworld Breach, Thassa's Oracle, which are completely different. There needs to be a distinction between these cards will win me the game by themselves and these cards change the game.
I think points would go a long way in that. Or a disqualifier, like you're saying. My Ian Malcolm Chaos deck is, the point of the deck is to give my opponents more cards so we can all play a more violent game of Magic with infinite mana and infinite cards. I play Rhystic Study in that deck because I want to trigger Ian Malcolm on myself to hand cards out. Like 5 games out of 10, what will end up happening is I'll exile like 5 of my own counterspells.
Yeah.
And so people have like free, basically like offer you can't refuse, arcane denial counterspell on their turn, which is really funny when you're playing Gishath or Zakama. And you're like, I guess I can defend my dinosaurs now. It's a really different and fun experience.
Yep.
But that's not because I have a Thassa's combo that's coming out of exile.
Not even a little bit. I like that they want to create a system that people can rely on to accurately gauge their deck power and creating a verbal shorthand. My deck is a 2. That's great. I love that. The issue is that this lives in a world that everyone is going to be honest and open with each other. And this is not going to stop the cheese ball at your local game store from saying, I'm playing a 3, and then tosses ad nauseum you on turn 4. Like, he's gonna be like, this is a legal deck. If what you're trying to fight is unfair tables that create unfun gaming environments, you need to be more specific. If what you're trying to do is just create verbal shorthand that anyone can use willy-nilly, well, guess what? The people are already doing that. This, to me, speaks to we're trying to protect the player who wants to play at an equal, fun, fair table. And right now, I kind of think it's failing at doing that.
So I don't disagree that there are shortcomings here, but what I really like is that it is starting a discussion. And
yes,
you and I are firmly entrenched in Magic Land camp. I know many, many Magic cards. I've been playing a long time. All the people I play with generally know Magic, and there are new players who come in too who have never seen Drannith Magistry.
Yep.
And so I think that I really like that this is giving them a list of like, almost like wanted posters. It's like, hey, if you're out and about, watch out for that guy.
It's very good.
Yeah, and I think that's cool. I would love to see points that maybe give like that Thasso's Game Shop guy. He's playing 20 points as opposed to my Ian Malcolm deck playing 5 with Ristic.
Yeah.
Very different scale. But I really like that we're starting a good conversation here for people who are not like chronically online, Googling the Magic decks that just came out, and like people who just want to like pick up a precon and play.
Something that this doesn't address is that cards are not just the sum of their individual parts.
Yeah.
When you combo cards, they become infinitely more valuable and powerful. And it does have shortcomings, and I love that it has this wanted poster. What I wish they would do is open a community forum of like post or submit a card that you think should be on a list.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
And then maybe after like 5 months, they say, these are the top 20 cards in each color that people are the most worried about. And then you get to see them.
Where's Laboratory Maniac and Jace?
Yeah, exactly. Like, I can run those in a 1.
Yeah. Which, to be fair, some of those like self-mill decks, especially with no tutoring, are very silly. But they do literally change the game. So
yeah.
I agree, like a top 20 list would be so cool.
I really think that they would be served by opening this list making up to the community. And then if they wanted to go through and trim it down afterward, that would be fine. Like, people might be too upset about Soul Ring, and they're like, Soul Ring accelerates the game too fast.
Do you play Soul Ring in your decks?
I do.
I don't.
That's fine.
Yeah.
I think that's good. But not knowing the community's general like accepted opinion on things seems like they are sort of wandering blindly in their own experience and not in the community as a whole. Yep. It's good that they're naming these cards so that people learn about them. There needs to be more. There needs to be more.
Yeah.
And if they want to distinguish between strong and cEDH, they need to work harder to do that.
Yeah, and I think, look, great start. I'm happy that this is what we got out of the Wizards transition away from the rule committee, and I think there's a lot of positives here. So I'm very excited to see where we go, especially like as precons get better, as sets have like new mechanics that are crazy. Context, I think, is important. I agree.
I think that we can end this with a dice roll to see which of our opinions is the strongest.
God, it's been a while.
My opinion is that even though this is good work, it clearly shows to me there is a lot more work to be done and a lot more thought that needs to be put into making stuff like this.
Yeah, and I characterize this as an opening statement. I think it's a good start. I can't wait for the rest.
I think that they are going to use this as a closing statement.
2.
I got a 13.
All right, I'm sorry.
The outlook seems grim.
You're right.
I really hope that they do an update on this. I really hope that they take into consideration maybe, people who have been in the community for a really long time and may have some wisdom to, impart onto this list. Call up the professor. Call up Ryan. Whoa. He's ancient.
Whoa.
And we can improve this list to protect new players, to give longtime players a good experience, and to give cEDH the fucking playground that they deserve. Get rid of the ban list.
Whoa.
I'm saying it. Get rid of the ban list. cEDH should be whatever they want it to be.
I'm just excited for all the games where I'm going to sit down and someone goes, yeah, my deck's kind of like a 3, man. It's kind of like a 3 instead of a 7 now. That's really the only difference for me. To close out, I think, can we give an example of like a deck for each ranking in the way we understand them?
If you are new to Commander and you see this bracket list and you want to understand what it means, let us give you some examples.
Sure.
At rank 1 for Exhibition, this could be anything from a deck that has every card in it that has an image of like a frog or a certain character that you really like.
I know a guy who made Unicorn Tribal one time.
Yeah, I have a friend who
bad.
has an all frog deck. It doesn't have a win condition. It's just
No,
jumpy.
it has combat damage.
It is just jumpy boys.
Yeah.
For 2, we have core decks. This can be anything from a precon that you buy off of the shelves, like the Eternal Might Aether Drift precon that we just played with, or maybe your homebrew that you found that costs like $100, and man, you are just really passionate about this commander.
I could see this category also being someone like, I found this legendary card in my closet. I really like this. I'm going to build the cards with what I have.
Yeah, the most important descriptor for this deck archetype, I think, is that nothing about it is surprising. There is no point where I'm sitting down, someone plays a card, and I'm like, oh shit, that is the end of the game. You know what I mean?
Yep.
3 moves to upgraded. This is your passion commander or your precon that you've juiced up, and now there are things that are surprising about it. And the communication before sitting down at the table is, hey, this deck is kind of powered up. If you guys are playing precons or theme decks, this is not the place to play them. I will win against you. It's not going to be close.
This category seems like the one where if you Google top 10 cards to replace in X precon, you'd be here.
Exactly right. Also, this is the deck that EDH Rec will fully recommend to you by itself.
Pretty much.
It has not really any sauce. It just has all the good stuff and all the basic
cards you've seen a million
synergies.
times. You're playing all the swords. You're playing all the...
That's exactly right. Up to 4, we have Optimized. This is right before we get to cEDH. This is winning by turn 7 or 8. And when you sit down, you say, hey guys, every turn you are going to have no cards in hand. Or I'm going to be playing a stacks package that makes it so that you get to untap 2 things on your turn.
Yeah.
Bring your strongest because I am doing that.
I think Optimize can very often win faster too, but 7 or 8 is like, there's no way you haven't won or put yourself in such a situation you've already won by then.
To me, this is the most notorious commanders that don't fall into cEDH. This is Proliferate and Card Draw Atraxa. This is Dragon. This is Markov. This is all of those cards that when you start getting into Magic, you're like, wow, that is good, and they are built out.
Yep.
And
I really like Markov for this one.
Yeah, yeah. And finally, we get into cEDH. This is the premier strength. You are having pregame actions. You have free spells in the deck. You have a plan to win by turn 3, 4, or 5. And you are tutoring for everything, and you are expecting your opponents to bring the most money and power-packed decks to the table to counter you.
This is also one of the first times I think we've really talked about the mechanical difference. When you play cEDH, whenever you do anything, the whole table has to be okay with whatever happening because all of your plays are so impactful that like when you're playing a 4 good vampires deck or whatever we're talking about, it's not like I cast like a set or fetch a land and have to check priority every single time.
Yeah.
cEDH, everyone is chewing on every single game action that happens in such a way that, not saying that they counter everything, but they know like what the next step is and where they're going to react, and you're expecting them to do that.
Generally, closer to 1 on the scale, this is you and your friends after work, sitting down, drinking a beer, watching TV, playing Commander. Not saying that you can't do this at the higher ranks, but at cEDH, you have to be locked in, or you're gonna lose.
Or you're playing something where you have no interaction, you just hope you win by turn 1.
Yeah, I mean, that's it.
Oh, sorry, that's Yu-Gi-Oh.
Yeah, that's true. Tell us what you guys think about the new Commander power ranking. I think that shortening to 1 to 5 makes way more sense because
Less
1 to
gray
10,
area. Less
yeah,
gray
1 to 10 is such a gray area, and 1 to 5 is way more clear because really there are only 5 different degrees of decks that you would bring to a table. Like deck 0 is like I literally put 99 lands, or like I have cards that have no text. You know, like those decks don't come to the table.
Yet.
And then above cEDH, there kind of isn't anything unless you're ignoring the ban list. Which, to me, I feel like if they're going to make a Game Changers list that sticks by it strongly and then ignores it later, they should do the same with the ban list.
Yeah, that's fair. All right, well, we appreciate it, one, and we're definitely going to play a whole bunch of 2s on camera.
Yeah, we'll probably come out with a couple of games that say like, we're all playing 1s, we're all playing 4s, stuff like that, just to see how they run, and maybe at some point we'll have an update for this video.
Okay, bye.
Thank you very much.
Wahoo.